And they called me that night. I didn't even have time to think about being on the transplant list. I was only on the list 5 days and they called me. And that's when I was extremely emotional about the fact that another person had to lose their life to save my life.
Hey, it's Brad. And boy, am I happy you're here. If this is your first time, I'm really glad you found us. You're not going to be disappointed. And if you've been here before, welcome back. This is Pain to Performance. Let's jump into today's conversation. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. I have somebody very special with me today. So there are moments in life when the word urgent changes meaning. Not the kind of urgent where your phone will not stop buzzing, or not the kind where a deadline's looming. We know those too well. We're talking about the kind where your own heart is failing, where time is no longer measured in years, but in weeks, in days, in breaths. Somewhere in a hospital room, someone hears the words, "You need a transplant." And somewhere else, another family hears words that no family is ever prepared for. And between those two moments exists a decision. A check mark on a driver's license. A conversation someone once had. A choice made long before it was ever needed. That choice becomes a heartbeat. Today's guest is living proof that organ donation is not abstract. It's not political. It's not theoretical. It is a pulse. It is oxygen. It is borrowed time. Lester E. Crowell Jr. has lived through what most of us cannot imagine. Not one heart transplant, two. Two moments where his life stood on the edge of ending. Two families who said yes in their darkest hour. Two second chances. But this conversation is not just about survival. It's going to be about what happens when you wake up with someone else's heart beating inside your chest. It's going to be about responsibility. It's going to be about gratitude. It's going to be about what you do when you realize your time is not guaranteed. This is Pain to Performance in its most human form, guys. And I am beyond honored to welcome Lester. Lester, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I first just have to say, your story touched my heart the moment that I read it. And I had my team reach out, and I could tell very quickly that you were a busy man. And I would love to hear a little bit about what it is that makes Lester Lester. Tell me a little bit about you.
Well, I am the managing partner of 313 Salon Spa and Boutique. We are going to be in business for 52 years, March 13th, which is also 313. And we have about 85 employees. I did hair from 1976 all the way to 1991. And then we just got so big that I had that managing personality. So I just became the managing partner. I slowly stopped doing hair. I did sell computers at one time also, besides running my salon. I brought salons and spas from paper books up to computers, but I sort of let that side of the business go when I needed my first heart transplant. But yeah, that's me. I come to work 4 days a week at least. I won't all 7 days a week. We are open 7 days, and we have about 85 employees, and that's me. I love to travel.
Oh, that's beautiful. Where's your most favorite place that you've ever traveled?
I go to Cancun a lot. It's so quick.
I don't blame you.
Half hours. Have a place there. So nice.
It's an easy flight. It's a beautiful location. How can you not love it? It's one of my favorite places to go as well.
I've traveled everywhere. I've been to Europe many, many times, the Caribbean many times. Yeah.
I love that. Well-traveled, successful business. Lester, you're speaking things that I hope to reach at some point in my life also. So let's go back to the moment you first learned something might have been off. You said that you continued working until you needed that first transplant. Can you maybe, talk to me about the walk-up on that? Yeah, go ahead.
It really started when I was 13.
Okay.
I started having chest pain. My mother had a congenital heart problem that
Mhm.
came from her side of the family. Her brother, my uncle, passed away at 40. My mother had
Mhm.
an issue. At 13, I started having chest pain and sort of complaining to my mother. We finally got it diagnosed around 15, and they diagnosed her with idiopathic hypertrophic subaortic stenosis. I also had what they called a runaway heart. So at any given time, my heart would just start beating at 180, 200 beats a minute, sometimes for no particular reason. I quickly found out during my younger days that if I didn't eat during the day, I would be fine. And
Mm.
I could do anything I wanted to physically. And that was
Hmm.
fine with me. I know some people like start shaking when they haven't eaten in a while, not me.
Sure.
And I sort of did that naturally.
Mm.
That went on, and I just sort of when it I would have issues, I would just stop and try to help stop my heart from beating so fast and rapid.
Mm.
And that worked until my 40s about, and then I was diagnosed in congestive heart failure when I was 40.
Wow.
That means that your heart is not working. The muscle itself is not working properly. Mine, the problem was it just got so enlarged that when your heart muscle is really small, it really beats very hard, and it has a thing called ejection fraction, and it ejects the blood out to the body, and then it sucks it up and it keeps doing that kind of thing. Well, when it
Mm.
gets really big, it doesn't squeeze down properly. Your blood does not flow properly. Your fluids do not eliminate properly. So you start
Mhm.
filling up with fluids and congestive heart failure, and they give you all kinds of diuretics, and you lose a
Mhm.
lot of weight, but still doesn't help that much. It did help for a while. And when I was first diagnosed, that day I remember I had an actual blood clot in my heart. They didn't
Wow.
actually put me in the hospital. They just put me on heavy Lasix
Yep.
diuretics. I lost 10 pounds in like the first week. But I went
Wow.
on until I was 42 and I was getting really, really sick. I couldn't actually have this conversation because I didn't have enough breath. I couldn't, breathe deeply enough to continue
Mhm.
talking like this. My mother was also 68, 69, and she was diagnosed with congestive heart failure about in her like 64, 65. But she was a
Mm.
smoker. They couldn't really do anything as far as a transplant. She actually passed away in
Sorry
August
to hear
of
that.
1999. My brother, her brother, my uncle, he passed away when he was 40, back when I was like a teenager, of the same heart muscle problem. A lot of people have cholesterol buildup and blockages. That's not what our problem was. It was the actual heart muscle. And so in August of 99, my mother finally passed away of this condition. She was 69. And around February of 2000, the next year, I got this virus, and it was more of a stomach virus, but I was just so weak, I couldn't get over it. I went to see my
Mhm.
general practitioner, and he said, "You need to go to Emory immediately. You're in bad congestive heart failure." So he sent me down that day. It was a Thursday. They checked me in immediately. I saw Dr. Andrew Smith at Emory,
Mhm.
and they put me in the hospital to do all the tests that they could do that, qualifies you for a heart transplant. And they all came back and I was good. I had no other issues really except the heart muscle, and, I was very active. Anyway, they they said it was all good, and I got out of the hospital that Thursday, and I said, "So what should I do next?" They said, "Well, we need a letter from your insurance company saying that they'll pay for the heart transplant, that you're all good with that." They got the letter that Monday, which is like 4 days later. And I had a doctor's appointment with Doctor Smith that Friday to see, like,
Mm.
can he stay out of the hospital? I lived in Marietta. It was only like 25 miles northwest of Atlanta.
Okay.
So it was a good candidate to stay at home, and they let me stay at home. But I went to Doctor Smith that Friday and I said, "When do you think it'll be?" He says, "Well, you're A negative. I don't Not a lot of people are waiting for a transplant because you're a blood type. But then again, we don't get a lot of people because your blood type is more rare." So I went home that day. It was actually April 14th, and they called me that night. I didn't even have time to think about being on the transplant list. I was only on the list 5 days and they called me.
Wow.
Probably 1 o'clock in the morning. They asked
How
me,
rare is that?
Lester?
Well,
Is that
having a heart transplant for 25 years, I've definitely run into people that got it the same day almost.
wow?
But it's pretty rare, and I'm not talking about just hearts. I'm talking about livers, kidneys. It seems to
Just
be,
in general.
as I'll talk about later, I've met a lot of transplant people, and liver people who need livers, they need it right away or they're going to die. I mean, within 2 weeks. So they tend to get transplants quicker because that's
Mhm.
their longevity. But they called me that night and they asked me, "Have you had any infections in the last 2 weeks?" When they said this is a transplant coordinator, my mind went blank. I could not think about anything. They said, "I'm going to
Yeah.
get had to actually ask my wife, "Hey, have I had any infections in the last 2 weeks?" She said, "No." And they said, "How long can you be here till you can be down to Emory?" And I said, 45 minutes. So I went down and I waited pretty much all night. They have to get that organ in and they have to test it and they have to make sure that
Mhm.
it can be transplanted. They actually called 2 or 3 people. I didn't know that at the time
Wow.
to, just in case I'm not the right candidate. And
Mhm.
I was the right candidate. So they did the transplant the very next morning, April 15th. And
Wow.
some people claim that, it was because of my tax situation. April 15th is a tax day. And no, it was definitely my heart muscle. But yeah, that was my first heart transplant.
Wow. So, I mean,
Back 2000, April 15th, 2000.
what a journey, Lester. So I really kind of want to take it back just a little bit there for a second. You talked about the tests that they had to run. Can you maybe walk me through a little bit of that?
Well, it wasn't really a lot. That first
Okay.
heart transplant, it seemed like they put a catheter in my neck and it went down, to swan catheter, they call it. And they were testing all the blood pressures in my heart. I had no other issues. I don't remember the lung test, the first one. The second one I definitely remember. But the first one, I don't really remember them doing a lot of tests other than blood work and that swan catheter to test everything. And,
Mm,
I had not even been under that cardiologist care until I met
mm,
him a week before that. But I guess just everything was just right for me, my age, my
sure.
body type, the way they test or way they transplant hearts a lot is blood type, body size, body mass. A
Okay.
small heart can't handle a huge person, and a large heart
Sure.
can't handle a small person type of thing. So that's important. But yeah, I didn't really have a lot of tests other than that swan catheter in my neck for about 3 days.
Very interesting. So I heard you say that you met this cardiologist. Did you say 7 days prior to him
Yeah, really. I mean,
opening your chest?
there straight from my general practitioner to see Dr. Smith. First time I'd seen him, and I'd been with other cardiologists,
Sure.
Dr. Ball was
Sure.
one at side, but this one was because Emory was doing transplants, and my general practitioner was a fellow there in the
Mm,
cardiac transplant team for a minute.
okay.
He eventually decided to become a general practitioner and
Mm,
change direction, but he knew
mhm.
the whole staff there. Um, and I met Dr. Smith. They did all the tests that they needed to do, which I don't really remember going through a bunch. And they put me on the list.
Wow. So I'm really kind of interested about your your thought pattern for a minute with this. I know you said that your mind went completely blank whenever they asked you if you had any infections within 2 weeks. But where did your head go whenever you heard those words? Did you ask yourself, well, who's going to be doing this? Did we already know? Was there a plan put in place prior to?
I only met Dr. Smith. He's a cardiologist. I didn't meet the surgeon until after the transplant the next day.
Wow.
There's 2 days really. I guess, what happens that first one, I was very scared, nervous. I called all my family. I
Absolutely.
had 3 sisters. I called my father. He's the first one I called. My mother had already passed away, like, only, what, 4, 8 months earlier. And I
Wow.
said, "Hey, Dad," they just called me, for a heart transplant. He says, "Do you want me to meet you there?" I said, "No, we'll call you." No, I'm kidding. He says, I don't know why I asked you that. Of course I'm coming down there,
Right.
and so all my sisters and, their others, spouses and friends and all that, met us all down there. It was like 3 a.m. We're waiting really till the next day. I had a defibrillator in my chest because my heart
Mm.
raced so much. They were nervous that at one point it would race and just stop beating, I'd go into,
Yeah, Faith had. Mm.
yep. They took that out. That was the thing I was most concerned about when I woke up from the heart transplant, because one time
Mm.
with this defibrillator in, my heart started racing uncontrollably. I jumped in a car with my wife and 2 other friends, and we drove down to Emory. She drove, I wasn't driving. The police stopped in the middle of it, and they saw me getting hit by this defibrillator about every 2 minutes. You could actually see
Wow.
coming. And as soon as the police woman walked up to the car and saw what was going on, she said, "Put on your flashers and drive safely. Hurry up and get to Emory." And so she let us go immediately. And when I
Whoa.
got to Emory, they threw me on the table. They tried to put some intravenous drugs in me to knock me out so they could hit me with those big paddles. They could
Yep.
never get those in because it was shocking me like every 2 minutes, literally. It went off about
That's rough.
60 times in a row. And
Oh
finally,
my
big
gosh.
paddles. And, that was unbelievable. This defibrillator in my chest is about 32, 34 joules. Well, the big
Okay.
paddles were 300 and something joules.
Yeah.
I was completely aware.
You were. Oh my
I
gosh,
had
Lester.
levels. Yeah.
I
But
could
it was
only
awesome.
imagine.
And that's when I, sort of, they already had some workup on me, from an electrophysiologist, but I'd never seen Dr. Smith
Mm.
before.
Wow. So you never really met the surgeon until after everything was done. Did you
Yeah.
go into that surgery? I mean, obviously you might have been scared. You might have been really worried. Prior to going into that, how did you mentally prepare for that? I think is my question.
I,
Can you?
I didn't have time to mentally prepare for the first one.
Fair?
It was such a shock to call me so quick. And
Mm.
on the way down there, I'm thinking, am I going to come out of this? Am I going to live?
Mm.
I didn't know, even though they say, oh, heart transplant, 92%, and it's even higher now, 92% success rate for at least a year. And I thought, okay, but that still doesn't, this is major. They're taking your heart out and putting it
Yeah.
in.
Mhm.
So I didn't really grasp that. I didn't know if I was going to make it. And then even afterwards at Emory, they're so used to doing it at that point, the day when I was able to get up and wander around and go from testing to testing before they let me out of the hospital, I would turn to, they're like, come over here. And I'm like, I lost all my body strength. My legs, I could not even hardly stand up. I don't know exactly why. But
Mm.
when they say, come over here, I'd look at them and say, look, I just had a heart transplant. And they looked at me like, so is everybody else in here. Come on over. I'm like, okay. It was very,
It
hard to fathom or accept or.
I mean, that makes total sense, and I can only imagine. So, let's talk about the phone call. Whenever you got that phone call,
Mm.
how did that feel? I mean, did you even process it in that moment?
I didn't exactly. It was very shocking to get it so quick.
Sure. I mean, I would have been shocked.
We had a salon, we moved to our new salon in 2002. We had an older salon that was just a mile north on the same road, Canton Road, Marietta, Georgia.
Mhm.
And it was 6,600 square feet, and Cobb County cut a road and made us a corner. Well, everybody wanted to buy that corner. So we were in negotiations. It was 1999. We moved out of that building in 2002. But we had a back door. We had 2 back doors. One was the main back door that employees came through. The other was like a warehouse. It was constantly causing problems with the alarm system. And so when I got that phone call at 1 o'clock in the morning, I thought, I've only been on the list 5 days. That's the alarm people. What's wrong with the back door now? And they said, this is
Sure.
the transplant coordinator at Emory. And I'm like, huh? I just went to show.
What a I was about to say that's a whiplash moment for
It
sure.
was.
That's
Definitely.
that's so. Did you feel happy, or was it just more of just you were just numb?
Yeah, I was too nervous to feel happy. I was too scared to not
Okay.
know what the outcome was going to be to
Mhm.
really feel elated. Now, maybe there might have been a mixture if I waited longer. I mean, the second one, I waited for a year and a half, literally, had different
Mhm.
things happen during that. So it's a completely different story for the second one. But the first one, I was just so shocked. I didn't have time to think about it, really.
Wow. I mean, honestly, what a gift, Lester, right? I mean, a gift to be able to get that quickly. So, eh, I think I might maybe touch on something here a little bit deeper for a minute. Whenever we get that transplant, we know that it's coming from someone. We know that it's coming from somewhere.
Right.
Did you ever get to meet the family of that individual? And how did
They
you
were
really process the reality that someone else's loss became your ultimate survival?
yeah. It hit me hard at first,
Sure.
that first heart transplant, I got it from a 15-year-old cross-country, um, bicycler.
Wow.
He was in competition. His parents didn't wanna talk about it. They
Okay.
didn't wanna communicate about it. Um,
Sure.
but I knew where I got it from. I even had an employee who worked there at one point, was his best friend. But,
Wow.
it didn't really sit right with me, physically. I had problems. I had
Mm.
rejection in the 3rd week,
What?
and for 3 weeks, they kept telling me, "We're gonna get the medicine right. We're gonna get the medicine right," and they finally did. But they had to give me intravenous steroids. Normally, they send you away with
Mm.
prednisone, which is a steroid to stop
Mhm.
rejection, and then they also give you immune suppressants to keep your immune system low, to not reject the heart.
Sure.
So, eventually, they take you off of those steroids, but they leave you on the immune suppressants. Well, at the point when I got rejection in my 3rd week, they put me on high doses of steroids, and that's when I was extremely emotional, extremely, upset about the fact that, another person had to, lose their life to save my life. And it was very, touch and go at that point, I felt like
Sure.
at one point I traded some issues for others, that I was not
Mm.
that much better off. It
Mm.
had a lot to do with my mental state at the time and
Sure.
physical because, I was
Of
on
course.
steroids so high.
Yeah. Mm.
So it wasn't, it was very emotional a lot during that time.
I could only imagine. So, at what point did that kind of turn around for you, or did it?
You know, um, it got better. 6 months, 9
Mm.
months. This
Mhm.
one took a while. They told me not to go anywhere for 6 months or be around
Wow.
people, especially children who carry a lot more, uh, they get colds and different things quicker. They're not
Sure.
immune to 'em yet. So, I stayed away. I actually ran the salon from home. I could connect to my computer from my house. I had a director of operations who's still here, Christina Herrera, that I talk to daily. And, it took me a while to finally, get over that emotional part of it. I mean, I still think
Absolutely.
about it,
Of
but,
course. And, just for the back of my head is asking, how did we get over that? Was that just time? Did we go through therapy? Do they offer therapy for like transplant individuals? Do they offer anything of that sort to try to help
oh,
with
yeah.
that coping?
You talk to your, social worker. And
Mhm.
also, like the Georgia Transplant Foundation, which I'm sure we'll get into talking about, they offer
Absolutely.
programs like that, mentors, people that have been through it before, people that know what you're going through. They offer that. So the social workers, I didn't feel like I needed that. I could
Mhm.
grasp it. I wasn't maybe that happy about it, but I was, on the other hand, I was happy to live. I wanted to live. At that point, I probably had about 60 employees. And I definitely wanted to
Wow.
be around for my family and for my
Mhm.
employees. I wanted to continue living and run my business. And so I was very caught up too about getting back to work as soon as I could. I know some people maybe be older or they don't have exactly what I was going through, to come back to, but I definitely did. And I was anxious to get back to that. So that was a lot on my mind during
Mm.
recovery too.
I can imagine. So, you, it sounds that we went through all of this. We went through the surgery, and then now we're rejecting. We finally get the medications right. So you survived the first transplant. How did you find out you needed a second one?
Well, about my 8th year, they do an annual. When you first get a heart transplant, they go into your neck. I don't know if you can see that, but I have a scar right here. And if
Very rarely.
every week they go in and they take little pieces of your heart to check it for rejection. That's the only way they can check it. And so on my 3rd week is when they found out I was in rejection. So I had to go 3 more weeks before they sort of stopped that rejection. So that's unusual. A lot of people they'll go in your neck and do this, test 4 weeks in a row. Then you go to every 2 weeks, and you go to once a month, and then you go to even longer. Nowadays, they don't even do those tests like they used to. But that was me. And so, I had to go through a lot of that before I got to the point where I was pretty much okay. Well, they also do an annual where they go in through your leg, a catheterization. They
Sure.
go up. This is the normal test they do for people that they're checking for blockages in your arteries and your heart.
Mhm.
And so in my 8th year, in April, I had my annual, but about in August, October, I started feeling chest pain. And I started
Hmm.
calling Emory like, "I'm feeling chest pain." And they said, "Look, we cut that vagus nerve. If you had a heart attack,
Okay.
you wouldn't feel it." I said, "I'm feeling it." And they said, "Well, it's probably your gallbladder," something like that. "Come on in, we'll give you a check." So I went in
Okay.
February of 2009. I'm in my 9th year almost. They did a nuclear stress test and they said, "We don't see anything." They got my heartbeat up to like 200 beats a minute. Well, 2 months later, I went back for my annual, and that's when they actually went into my arteries through my leg,
Mhm.
catheterization. They, put dye in your heart, and boom, I was 90, 40, and 50 blocked. I had blockages in all 3 main arteries. And they said, and it's coming from the edges inward. We can't even put stents in those. I'm like, okay. I thought, wow, I'm done. That's how long can I live with these blockages? What can I happen? They started giving me nitroglycerin, which I've been on lots of heart medicines already, and they took me off of them. And then they put me back on some blood pressure and some of these immune suppressants. But then they started giving me nitroglycerin because nitroglycerin will open up your arteries and your veins, allow
Mhm.
blood to flow easier through. And I was starting to take those here and there whenever I would have severe chest pain. And
Mhm.
I thought, they said, you possibly could get a second heart transplant. We'll have to do a lot of tests. And I walked away from that annual thinking like, who gets a second heart transplant? I thought nobody did, but I Googled it, and immediately a guy named Eric Compton popped up. He's a professional golfer out of Miami. He had had a heart transplant for 16 years, and he was riding his bike one day and boom, had a massive heart attack and he needed a second transplant, and he got it right away. And then I started seeing more and more people that had had a second heart transplant. I thought, wow, this is a thing. People do get second heart transplants. Well, I got tested for everything, and the tests were a lot more than the first one. I had to go through like lung blowing in, like someone who's got severe lung problems, had to go through all those tests, make sure my lungs were still good. Had to do a lot of more stress tests and things, and I was definitely a candidate for a second heart transplant. I had no other physical problems. I didn't have diabetes, I didn't have anything,
Mhm.
and, but my heart was beating too good, and so the organization that decides if you go on the, transplant list, it's called UNOS. They would not put me on the list because they said my heart was functioning too good, so Emory's hands were tied. And that
Mhm.
was in April of 2009. I had a light heart attack in December of 2009, went into the hospital. One of the arteries sort of snapped off, they called it, and it put me on the list. Now this is December 22nd, 2009.
Okay.
So fast, forward the whole year. In November, it had gotten to the point where I had a blockages in the middle of my arteries in my heart.
Um,
So they're gonna do a stent. So they pulled me in, they did a stent, and most people are like, "Oh, I felt so much better after I got those stents." I felt way worse. It didn't really help at all. I was still having severe chest pain. It was getting worse and worse. And almost 3 weeks later, they called me. I'd waited a year and a half at that point. I got put on the list in December of December. I got the letter December 22nd. I still have it in my drawer. 2009, you're officially on the list. They called me December 3rd, 2010. Same thing. My phone rings. I pick up the phone. I'm like, who's calling me so early in the morning, forgetting I'd been on the list for a year and a half. Like, who is this? I pick up the phone. They say, Lester Crowell. I said, yes. Well, this is Emory. I thought, that's when it really hit me. That's probably what you think I might have reacted when you asked me, what was it like waiting on the list? This is what it was like waiting on the list for the second heart transplant, because it was a year and a half. I thought, oh no, here they are. I'm going to live. I'm going to get my heart transplant. It's going to be all good, but I know what I'm going to have to go through. I know what, is going to happen. I know the chances of survival, which are really high, but still, you think taking a heart out and putting a heart in, it's, pretty intense. Is it
Yeah.
really work? And so they called me down there again. Said, how long before you can be here? And the usual answer, I've done it twice now, 45 minutes. I live in Marietta. And they said, report to G Unit. Now, when they said that, I thought, wow, G Unit, I am cool. I am hip. And that proves it right there. I'm going to G Unit, getting a second heart transplant. And so that's really a unit at Emory. So I
Okay.
went down there and I waited all day long. I mean, we must have got down there at probably, 6, 7 in the morning, and they didn't take me back until 6 that night, testing the heart. So I heard that it had come from Macon, Georgia, and I didn't really ever figure out who that transplant really came from. I still have it, and I waited all day long. They kept saying, it's good, it's good. But, those tests that they have to do on the heart, I guess they were still doing them. I think also that they didn't tell me this, but through the grapevine, I heard that that person was being kept alive in Macon, Georgia. So they had to transport up and then remove the heart type thing. So, I never got all the details, but they didn't take me till 6 that night. And I didn't wake up until, of course, 2 days later. But my family says that the surgeon who did both of them, Dr. Vega at Emory, he did both of the heart transplants. They said that when he came to see them the next morning, that he was covered in blood because I got that stent like 3 weeks before. They put you on this medicine called Plavix. It's a blood thinner.
Yes.
It has no
Oh.
antidote. It has no antidote to thicken the blood because these stents they put in have some sort of metal issue in them, and it's a special blood thinner. And so they had to wait all day. That was another reason they had to wait all day, to try to let this blood thinner work itself out. I had taken it the last time Thursday morning. They called me Friday morning, and basically they waited almost till Saturday morning to do the actual transplant. But there was Dr. Vega he said the hardest part of the transplant was stopping me from bleeding so much because of this
Oh,
Plavix.
because of the Plavix.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. So, I mean, I can only imagine what your family was thinking in that period of time also, whenever they saw him that way. I mean, I'm sure a lot of things came to their head with that. But it obviously the surgery was a success. So that's phenomenal.
I've had
So
no
I
issues with the transplant. It's been 15 years for this one. Actually, in December will be 16 years, but I've been living with a heart transplant going on 26 years. April will
That's
be 26.
amazing. Wow. I mean, just incredible modern day science.
Oh,
So I'm just really kind of curious. Did the process feel any easier with the second one than the first one?
Um, my first original native heart, I had supraventricular tachycardia. My heart would just speed up, unbelievable. Then I got what normal people get in my first transplant, blockages,
Hmm.
cholesterol buildup, and people have heart attacks from that. So I got that. The third heart in my body, I got bradycardia. Bradycardia is a slow beat heartbeat. It doesn't beat fast enough. And they put me on a medicine It's a theophylline or something like that. It was an old asthma medicine for the first 6 months to try to
Mm.
increase the speed of the heart. If I would, it wasn't bad when I was up and walking around, doing things. It'd be in my 70s, that kind of thing. But the problem would, when I would relax, when I'd lay down, when I'd go to sleep, it would drop down to the low 50s, sometimes
Mm.
40. And they didn't want
Wow.
that. And so eventually it took a year, but they put a pacemaker in, and just a small pacemaker. I've had many things in this, defibrillators, multiple pacemakers, and now I still have a pacemaker. But it's a small one, and it helps with the heartbeat. Because if I'm up and walking around, and as I'm sitting here right now talking and all that, it's not even working. My heart rate is 70s, 80s. But when I go to lay
Right.
down, it stops it from going below 70. So, that was an experience too, waiting a year to get that straightened out.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know,
Man, it's Lester, you've been through so much. It's honestly, it really does. It brings such warmth to my heart that you've made it this far, and have been through so much adversity. Really, truly. So, what changed for you after this second transplant? I mean, I know the first one we had some problems, and then now here we are with the second one. And you said that the process was just as much difficult as it was the first time. Did anything change for you?
well, between the first heart transplant and the second heart transplant, I have a pretty big salon in Atlanta. There's other salons that are of the size of ours, some a little bigger. And we became friends. We're all friends here in Atlanta, salon owners. And I have a friend named Don Shaw who owns salons in Atlanta. And he had a daughter named Danielle, who in 1999, when I was really bad congestive heart failure, she was suffering from melanoma skin cancer. She'd just been
Oh,
diagnosed. She was pregnant. They couldn't do anything about it until she had the baby. When she had the baby, it was too late. He started an event called You Can Make a Difference, and it was to
mhm.
support MD Anderson in Texas. We did our first one. Right before she passed away in October of 99. She passed away in February of 2000. I got my heart transplant in April of 2000. He
Mm.
continued to do these events once a year, and I started helping him. So I got all my vendors here at the salon, L'Oreal, Redken, all those, to start donating to his event to
Amazing.
sponsor MD Anderson. And we did 7 of them in a row. So that was between my first and second heart transplant. So as I'm laying there recovering from my second heart transplant in my hospital bed, I started texting the director of operations, Christina Herrera. Hey, we should do some sort of event. We should give back. We should do something. All the experience I had, and she was involved in it some, with Don Shaw and his events, we can do one. And she texts me back. She says, "Okay, what kind of drugs did they have you on?" I'm just wondering. And we actually did our first event in July. I think a lot of people who get a gift of life, organ donation, of course, most, I would say 99.9999% want to give back in some way. They just don't know what
Absolutely.
avenue to turn to. They don't know which way
Sure.
to go. They end up trying to do it themselves, which, in my opinion, I would join an organization that's established and try to help that organization, further it. And actually, when I was in the hospital and I was having those thoughts of giving back, in walked my surgeon, Dr. Vega. True story.
Mhm.
And I said to him, Dr. Vega, if I were to win the lottery, because I do play the lottery, who would I even give to? He says the Georgia Transplant Foundation. I had no idea who that was. I had good insurance. I had no issues with, getting my heart transplant paid for by insurance. And,
Mm.
I had family around me. I was working every day. I didn't, I could pay my house payment. I could pay my medical costs. I could pay my health insurance. I had none of those issues. When he said that, I started trying to figure out who they were. And we had our first event in July of 2011. I was basically 6 months out, a little longer, from my first heart transplant, and we donated to the Georgia Transplant Foundation because they are local in Georgia. They help people here in Georgia. They help you when you can't pay your house payment, you can't pay, your utilities, your medicine. You can't get to the hospital. Or maybe if you have a child and you're not going to
Mhm.
work, you're going to the hospital to sit there with your child until they get a transplant. So you
Mhm.
basically, stopped working. And
Sure.
who knows how your employer is going to be at that point? Either they support
Absolutely.
you or they can't in business support you because they can't afford it either. But that's who the Georgia Transplant Foundation really is. So
So
that started
that's oh, go
that
ahead.
started the
Sorry.
journey for, the Georgia Transplant Foundation.
I love that. That's actually I was gonna bring that up here actually, was kind of talking about I know we've talked and um I I'm understanding that you would probably be an advocate for organ donation,
Definitely.
right?
Yeah.
And it sounds to me that you have a passion for that, about that importance. Other than the fact that you are a receiver of an organ, why is it so important?
Well, I think it's important to people that know that your life can be ev my life is after my first heart transplant, I could never even work out since I was 14. I couldn't get on a treadmill. I couldn't do that. I couldn't
Mhm.
sustain any kind of physical activity. I was on the tennis team in high school, and they took me out of it because I couldn't continue. Your life is better even. I've known people to get who's been diabetic all their life, and they get a pancreas and a kidney transplant. They're not diabetic anymore. People just don't know, as I didn't know on my first one. I didn't know how much better life could be,
Mm.
with the transplant. That that thought of, I don't know what's going to happen. Am I going to make it? Well, you're probably going to make it. And you're probably going to live a better life than you were living probably most of your life if you've been sick all your
Sure,
life.
sure.
So
And
I would tell people to don't even think twice about doing it or not doing it. Definitely do it.
I love that. And I know earlier you were talking about Georgia Transplant Foundation. I believe there's also something called Angels of Life as well. Can you maybe tell me a little bit about what they do? Do they help with those that are
That's
really
us.
organ donation?
That's
Okay, got it.
that's 313 Salon Spa and Boutique. That first event that we did in July, we called it.
Okay.
I was laying there still in bed. I'm still at the hospital, and Dr. Vega says to me, the Georgia Transplant Foundation. I'm not really thinking about my recovery or getting out of the hospital I'm thinking about this event we're going to do. I'm
Mm,
planning it. I'm still at the hospital.
mhm,
And Angels of Life came to me, like this
mm.
name,
I love that.
angels, people that donate organs, they're angels, they give
Mhm.
life. Angels of Life was born. So we had our first
Beautiful.
one, like I said, in July. All my employees, the way it happens now, which is it will be our 16th annual Angels of Life, October 25th of this year at the Marriott Northwest, in right near the Battery, near Atlanta. My employees come on Sunday morning and they do about 32 models. 24 are women, 8 are men. They do their hair, their makeup. We have 4 boutiques that donate clothes. We highlight 3 stories of transplant recipients. We tell
Mhm.
their story on stage by video. The night starts off around 4:30. We have hors d'oeuvres. We have silent auction. We have drinks. People are perusing the silent auction for about an hour and a half. We have over 300 items. The actual show starts at 6. We do a fashion walk. We split these 32 models up into 4 segments. We do a
Mhm.
fashion walk, high energy, then we calm down and do this video of the person who had a transplant. We tell their story like I'm doing now, but we condense it to 4.5 minutes, believe it or not. And then we do a live auction. And we auction off these major things that were donated. And then we do it again. We do 4 different segments during that show that night. We do a Halo Award. We give an award to someone who has really helped us that year. And it's a fun night. It ends about 8:30 and we have a good time. But we also get the message out. What is it like to get a transplant? How do you recover?
Mhm.
All those
Mhm.
things we're telling in the story. At the end of the person's video, we bring them on stage and we asked them how the Georgia Transplant Foundation helped them, whether they paid their house payment, whether they're just mentors. They introduced them to people that, had gotten this done before and tells them what's going to happen. how did Georgia Transplant Foundation help you? I joined the board about 5 years ago, and I'm proud to say that, we've helped a lot of people in our years of the Georgia Transplant Foundation, because they've been around since like 1991, a long time.
Mom. That's amazing. So it almost kind of sounds a little bit like Ronald McDonald House, but more for transplant patients. Would you agree with that, or is there
Yeah,
a very large difference?
we're helping people. Yes.
Sure. I mean,
The
it
so
sounds like you guys.
the social worker at the hospital will really tell you how to get in touch with the Georgia Transplant Foundation if you haven't heard about them already. And it's right
Yeah.
here in Georgia. It's local to
Mhm.
Georgia and Georgia residents.
It's amazing. So, I'm really interested on this. I mean, it sounds like all of this came from your second transplant. You're thinking, how can I actually help? How can I give back? And it could have possibly come from either your personal need and desire to be able to help others, or being able to find a path forward to be able to make things easier for others. And all of that stemmed from the understanding of the importance of organ donation.
Mm.
And then you talked to your physician about it. They said Georgia Transplant Foundation, but you said, but wait, we can do something even more than just that. And that's where Angels of Life came through.
Right. It did.
I mean, absolutely beautiful pattern. I mean, talking about, and I hate everybody knows I'm going to make this connection, but talking about going from pain to performance for a
Mm.
minute. I mean, you really you were struggling, and you said, "What can I do to actually turn this into something incredible?" And it sounds like you've done that, Lester. And just hearing about it, I want to go to this event. So
Oh, bring on
I
your
would
friend.
love to do that. And so if somebody wanted to go, how early can they purchase tickets? What does cost look like? Is there local businesses that could possibly purchase
Yeah.
tables, sponsor? What does that look like?
We have sponsorships. It's on our website, 313.com. Three
Okay.
is always spelled out. THREE dash the number one, the number 3.com. We have a tab.
Mhm.
Besides all the services we offer as a salon and spa, there's an angels tab there. It shows all of the pictures and videos from all the years past. I'm not sure that we have it up exactly to buy, tickets or sponsorships yet, but we're soon to put that up very, very soon, about our next event, which is October 25th, 2026, at the Marriott Northwest again. And so we will have that up sooner than later. But that's where you can go to see it, 313.com, our website.
Got it. Beautiful. Well, Lester, I have one final question for you, and I think it's going to be able to really kind of tie everything together here. And I'll tell you, Lester, I'm an organ donor. I'm an organ donor. It's on my card. Everybody in my family knows, hey, I really need you to make sure this does happen. Whatever they can take from me, don't let me take it with me. Right.
Right.
So if someone is listening right now and is on defense about being an organ donor, what would you say directly to them?
I would just say that, it's very important. It can save someone's life, and one person can save many, many different lives and different issues with people. It's very important to me. I wouldn't be here if I didn't have someone to donate a heart for me, and that would be twice. Uh, I'm, I just wish that it was even different, that you would have to opt out of being an organ donor rather than opt in. People just don't understand the quality of life that you can achieve if you get an organ donation. And once you can't take it with you, so why not help someone you know that is struggling to live, who wants to live, and wants to help others, like I did, like I do. That was one of my main reasons for wanting to live, is to be there for my family, there for my employees, actually run my business. I wasn't the kind of person that's like, wow, I get to retire now. No, I was waiting to get back to work because I'm around so many people every day that I love, and that I love working with.
What an absolutely beautiful answer. I mean, you chose life, and that is something that I'm just so happy to hear, because I'm sure there's individuals that have gotten these types of transplants, and they just think things are over. But not you, Lester. You said, nope, I'm going to take this, run with it, and really make it worth it. So it seems like time and life has really changed for you. And that's just absolutely incredible. I love it.
Thank you.
Well, Lester, we're hitting the end of our time here. I just want to tell you, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being open about everything. I so appreciate it. I do.
I enjoyed it very much.
All right. Well, perfect, Lester. Well, I look forward to maybe next conversations down the line.
I want to see you at Angels of Life.
you
You
know what, Lester? I could actually probably make you that promise right now. And I'm sure I know plenty of business owners around in the area that would be happy to be able to support as well.
I
So,
appreciate it.
perfect. Well, thank you again so much.
Thank you. See you later.
Before we take off, one quick housekeeping thing. This podcast is for education and conversation only. I'm in no way a licensed therapist, doctor, wizard, and this show is not a substitute for care from a qualified professional. If something today made you think of someone you know, go ahead and do them a favor and send this episode their way. Pain is rarely a solo experience, and a good conversation is better shared. And if you're enjoying the show, make it official. Follow, subscribe, leave a review. It helps more than you realize and keeps this conversation going. Remember, the hardest part of pain to performance is learning how to listen. Now, I'll be here, same place, next play, and I can't wait to welcome you in.